Woo-hoo-hoo. And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And I have a special guest in the house today, somebody who I have known for a very long time, but just meeting for the first time today, Teddy Burriss. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah.
And what's so exciting is Teddy's actually one of the very first people I met on LinkedIn before I was on LinkedIn, and I met him on Periscope. So that just makes you realize
We're not allowed to talk about what I did on Periscope, Jillian.
that's right. It's kind of like Vegas. It's like what happens on Periscope stays on Periscope. It's the same deal. So it's just wonderful. Teddy is a LinkedIn leader who I did a video about many years ago about follow this LinkedIn leader, because Teddy just shares great, generous information, content, and stuff like that. So Teddy, before we get stuck in with our topic today, which is, if I could get the banner up, there we go. Giving and getting LinkedIn recommendations. So this is a fabulous topic. Could you please first just tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump right in.
Jillian, thanks. And I appreciate you and I finally getting together to chat and hang out, and we're doing it publicly. So for those who don't know me, I am Teddy. I am the husband of Rebecca. I am the father of Jesse, Rachel, Megan, and Lauren. I am the grandfather referred to as Boppy, B-O-P-P-Y, and I won't tell you all 12 of their names, but I refer to them as the Grand Wee-Wops. And my day gig, which affords me the opportunity to do well for them, is I'm a LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. I eat, drink, sleep LinkedIn 24/7. Absolutely love playing with this business tool and helping people figure out how to do it better. How's that, Jillian?
That is perfect. That is perfect. And your influence extends beyond LinkedIn, because you're rocking it on YouTube. You're rocking it on Quora. We talked about that before we were backstage today, just talking about how, you can bring LinkedIn, you can bring people to LinkedIn from other social media channels and be that expert out there in the interwebs. So that's cool too.
Yeah, it's fun. As I told you earlier, there are 3 platforms I hang out on all the time. That's LinkedIn, YouTube, and Quora. And I'm just want to tell your audience right now, Jillian, so there's no confusion. I no longer spend any time on Bumble or Tinder. I'm done.
Your wife will be happy to hear that. That's great. That's great. So today we're talking about giving and getting LinkedIn recommendations. And this is a fabulous topic, and something that I've never covered on my show today, or ever. And it's an interesting topic, because it's like there is some confusions, because people are like, aren't endorsements recommendations? What's the difference? There's lots of questions about this. And quite frankly, I saw your YouTube video, and you had a YouTube video talking about this, and I just thought it was so well done. So first of all, can you tell us why it's even important to get recommendations? What good is it? What good is it?
Oh, here, it starts with this, just more stuff. No, it's way more than that. Look, think about it this way, Jillian. I hang out with really cool marketing people, and that's where I learned this stuff. I learned a new phrase about 4 or 5 years ago: social proof. Social proof is where other people talk about you. Now, there's 2 styles of social proof. There's the good stuff, and then there's all that other stuff. And if you get your LinkedIn connections, as well as you use this philosophy to help others, if you get your LinkedIn connections to write a LinkedIn recommendation about you, then that becomes social proof. They go look at your LinkedIn profile and they, oh, Teddy says he's this, and Teddy says he's that, Teddy says he's this. And then down below, they see maybe more than 4 or 5 people who say, oh my God, Teddy is this. Jillian is the cat's meow right here. Tina is absolutely fantastic. Debbie knows this better than anybody else knows this. And by golly, there's a bunch of people out there that think Jeff Young is the coolest thing ever in this space. That's social proof. You can't beat it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're right. It lends to your credibility because, you know, if I see somebody that has 50,000 followers and no recommendations, that's like light bulb, you know, hey, something's not right here. And same with if I see somebody who has tons and tons of recommendations, but they've never given any. That also, you know, all these things can be clues as to what's the real story going on here. So, okay, so you said a magic phrase. If you can get people to give you recommendations, so that was one of you things that you said. So, how do we? Because I think a lot of people, we're hesitant, we're shy, we're like, well, if they liked me, they'd recommend me, but maybe that's a little bit passive, and you might have some tips for us.
Well, it's really easy. First of all, you never ask someone to give you a recommendation unless you can recall the time that the two of you worked together and you enjoyed each other's company. And you know for a fact when you left the room or you left that project, that person goes, that dude is cool. That lady is cool. You got to know that person. I mean, there's lots of people who will send out hundreds and hundreds of recommendation requests and hope and pray that people answer them. They don't know anything about them, but they want to do it anyway. Those are the same people that have 50,000 connections or followers, and they're not real. But you got to be real. And if you're going to ask someone that you know well, and they care about you because they like you, then it's not as hard to do. But you gotta ask them for something specifically. You can't just say, "Hey, Kevin, dude, will you write me a recommendation? Thanks a lot, love you, mean it, bye." Then now Kevin's got to think too hard, and he doesn't want to do that because he's a busy person.
Right.
So if you're going to ask somebody, you got to give them some context of what you want.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I can tell you a little bit more about that. I mean, we may talk about that in a minute.
Okay. No, that's great. The context. I love that. And then with recommendations, so do you recommend too that, like, if you get a recommendation, this is something that comes up over and over again. If you get a recommendation from somebody, do you turn around and give them a recommendation, or do you wait, or what's sort of the politeness of that all?
Yeah.
Because I've heard people say, we don't want to, even if you would recommend me, don't do it right away because that doesn't look good. And I don't think anybody should actually ever even feel obligated, like, oh, you gave me a recommendation, now I have to give you one, if you somehow didn't feel that it was appropriate. How do you deal with that stuff?
I have an app on my cell phone. It's just little snippets of music or noise, just snippets of noise, and I'm looking for boo hiss.
Boo hiss.
Because look, I mean, if somebody gives me a recommendation, you should never reciprocate unless you can clearly give them an honest, sincere recommendation in the right context. But just to reciprocate because you slap me on my back, I'm going to slap you on your back. That's again, these are real human beings. We're not trying to be fakes here. And so I'm not a fan of giving a tit for tat recommendation.
Trading. So just trading for trade's sake. It's like, do it because it's somebody you want to highlight, spotlight. You feel they add value to you, and they don't necessarily have to be clients, right? They can be colleagues. They can be just anybody you've worked with in a volunteer position. Like, there's many different places that you could think about that, right?
Yeah. Well, but there's one word that I absolutely say is a requirement for doing a recommendation, and that is relevance. I can't recommend somebody just because they cook up a good beef barbecue or they make a fantastic, Mississippi pot roast. If that person is all about something else in business, why should I distract their target audience with recommendations that are irrelevant? So it's got to be, and relevant doesn't mean I can only talk about, Jillian's video expertise. Relevance could be stuff that's all around that, but it needs to be relevant when you're doing it.
I got it. That makes sense. Okay, so let's hop over to some of our comments, and then we can circle back and we can talk about some of the other things. Okay, so speaking of Jeff Young, always in the front row. We love Jeff. Teddy is one of the most knowledgeable folks on the planet about LinkedIn. Looking forward to this one. That's an incredible recommendation.
Yeah, it is. Can I screenshot that?
Yes, it's absolutely lovely. And speaking of Tina, greetings from Belgium, Jillian and Teddy. So that's wonderful. I love when people come from across the pond and they join us. That is fabulous.
Yeah.
Hey, Teddy and Jillian, attending from Florida.
Yeah. Hey, Debbie, good to see you on here.
Hey, we got Marcia. Hello, Jillian and Teddy Burriss. Glad to be on the platform from DC. They're coming in from everywhere today, Teddy. So thank you for joining us.
And I'm not allowed to talk about my experiences in DC. The name of the bar was McAdoo's, but we won't talk about that.
Okay, we'll move along. The Grand Wee Wops. Everybody likes the Grand Wee Wops. Love it, Teddy. I think I will call you Boppy from now on.
I respect that. Yeah.
So hey, champions. Ooh, you've discovered the secret about Jeff Young. Okay, I don't remember what the secret is, but the secret is always out. He is a helpful guy. Okay, we got Mr. Kevin Turner. Good to see you and hear you, Teddy Burriss and Jillian Whitney.
He's rocking LinkedIn.
Yes, he's rocking. What a great group of shout outs. Love all these folks in our tribe. Teddy Burriss, love your sign. This is absolutely true. It all starts with a conversation. That is.
And Marcia, I put that there less for you, but more for me, because I stare at this dot all day long and I can see that behind me to remind me to have a conversation.
I like that. And it's Marcia. She's
she's
very particular, and I don't blame her because I am with my own name. And so she spells it out, which is, I think, really smart. Anyone else having a freezing issue? Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I saw that a couple times, but it's cleared up now.
Yeah, it just corrected for me. Yeah, LinkedIn can get weird several times. That's so sad when that happens. The audio repeated the last few minutes of the recording. And since this is Jillian's video, I have to mention it would be nice if LinkedIn would allow video recommendations.
Boom, waka waka. Jeff, they're watching, dude. They're hearing us.
Yeah, and I actually think that there are actually now programs where, one of them is called Ask Video, where you can get that and it prompts people to give you recommendations because it feeds them the questions. Yeah. Because I think that's what you talked earlier about context. And I think, Teddy, that's one thing that we don't recognize. A lot of people aren't comfortable writing. They fear their grammar or their typos, or they just don't know what to say. I think sometimes if you can frame, I know that people do this with books. Like if you've written a book and you're asking people to give you an Amazon review, most people are like deer in the headlights. I don't know what to say. And I know many authors, they sometimes give them prompts to help stir their creativity. Like, where were you before you met me? When we first started to work together, where were you at the end? If you can kind of feed people what it is you're looking for in a recommendation, that helps too, don't you think?
Well, so that's the little secret that I share. That when you write a recommendation for someone, you need to write it in context to who they are today. Now I get it. You write it today, 10 years from now, it's old school. I can't foresee 10 years from today. So I need to focus on where they are today. And so you got to think about, let me put it in the context of the ask. If I'm going to ask somebody, say I'm going to ask Tom, my buddy Tom, who's right down the street from me, stalking me on LinkedIn this morning. If I'm going to ask Tom to write me a recommendation, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, Tom, do you remember a couple months ago when we did that project where I helped you to polish the chrome wheels on your hot rod car. And then I'll say, Tom, I think because of the work I did to help you shine those wheels up, your car looked spectacular this weekend, and you felt more confident as you were driving up and down the street. And I believe that you achieved all that you wanted to achieve that weekend, which was really to be seen in your hot rod car. Then I'm going to say this, Tom, if you agree that I did that work for you satisfactorily, and if you agree to the value that it made you feel good as you were driving your hot rod car, would you do me a favor and write that recommendation? Now, I tried to come up with a ridiculous analogy here, and I did the best I could.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. And you've kind of emphasized the transformation. Here's where you were before. Here's where, and this is what working with me allowed you to achieve. So it's like you're now in a totally different place. So I think that's a great way to do that. And then do you tell them that it's okay to use any of this wording? Like they can take that and kind of massage it and make it their own?
Well, so I do say to them, I tell the story of what I did and what value they got. And then I say, and I use my keywords in there. I mean, if I'm going to write about Teddy's real work, maybe I did this LinkedIn training, did LinkedIn coaching, help you with your LinkedIn branding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe you got this value of your LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'll say, please write, if you agree, would you write that recommendation? Sometimes I do comma and use the keywords that I used. I really try not hard to hand it all out to them completely, but I give them a pretty good picture of what I'm looking for. And,
I love that.
And more often than not, if I'm sincere about what I did and I'm asking someone that does trust, respect, and like me as I believe they do, more often than not, I get it. But a lot of times, and I'm okay with this, Jillian, a lot of times I'll ask a bunch of people, and I do this in waves a couple of times a year. And I ask, 4 or 5 people, and I only get 1 or 2. Then I think those other 3 hate me. And I'm like, why do they hate me? I mean, I thought for sure that Randy, who's on here is LinkedIn. I thought for sure Randy loved me. He's told me before he loves me. And, but I realize this. It's not that they don't care about me. It's just that they missed it. They got busy. They really weren't comfortable writing it because it's not something they're, comfortable doing. So I've learned to accept that it's absolutely okay not to get a recommendation you asked for.
That's nice. And take your personality out of it. And I think that is really important, because I think sometimes we put more into the conversation than is really there. And we're just bringing our own baggage, they don't like me anymore. And you're right. Sometimes I know that things get buried, and I'm always appreciative of people will say, oh, I asked you, especially with these services recommendations, which are different than the recommendations on your page. So you've now got that too. But those are kind of those are easy to get buried. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, the person might come to you and say, well, should I withdraw my request because you seem like maybe you're overwhelmed? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it just fell to the bottom of my notifications. Let me hop right on it and I'll take care of it. And you do. So
I'm waiting to see, Jillian, if I think you get 20 or 25 services endorsements. I haven't done enough testing on that to know if I use up all 20, I think it's 20, if I use them all up, do I get more or do I get more the first year?
I think you do get more, but I don't really know the rhyme or reason to it. I've kind of heard things. I think it might have been John Asperian or maybe Kevin Turner that said they used them up and then they instantly got a few more. It could have been Brenda Miller, but I remember hearing one of them 3 and we talked about it in a chat once, and it was just like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And that was something I neglected forever. And then all of a sudden
I don't spend a lot of time on it either. Hey, here's a little nugget of information that you may or may not know. and you may know this, but I wonder if the audience knows this. Do you know what the biggest single field of data, what's it called? Typed in data, the biggest field is on LinkedIn?
Your about? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
No,
that's 2,600 characters in your about section. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking to see if anybody in chat, I don't know how timing is in chat. But here it is. It's the recommendation text.
Oh, wow.
3,000 characters for recommendation text. Is that that's a freaking book.
It really is.
So, so I'm like, okay, who's going to write a 3,000 character, that word, if I said word or who's going to write a 3,000 character recommendation? And then the other thought that comes to my mind is, should I write a 3,000 character recommendation? Or will I look like some kind of a goober? I mean, I'm going to have to say it over and over and over 5 times. Or I'm going to have to write a recommendation that says, I worked with Jillian on a project where we did X, Y, and Z, and we accomplished 1, 2, and 3. Let me tell you a story. Now I got to tell a whole story about that. And then I got to end it with, by the way, if you haven't figured out by now, you need to call Jillian if you need help with videos and make them easy peasy. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. That's a whole lot of text.
That is. Yeah. So the mirror of that would be, what do you kind of recommend as like, what's that sweet spot? Because I think you don't want to just go, good guy. Like, it's kind of like a comment. It has to be meaty, or else you're actually just kind of you're doing people a disservice if you just go thumbs up. You don't want to do that. It has to be somewhat meaty and address the skills that they're, I always look at people's headlines, because to me, I could comb through your about, but sometimes people's abouts are like novels, like they're so big, and it's like, okay, back when you were 10, it's like, wait a minute, it's kind of go back too far. But I look at their headline and I get an idea of, what's important to them and maybe their most current role. And I make it relevant for that. And I try to use keywords maybe that they're using if they're in creator mode and they say, I use these kind of keywords. I'll pay attention to that. But I don't really know, should we be aiming for maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs or a little bit longer? What do you have any kind of guidelines for that?
My only guideline is the context of, Teddy did this project for me and I got this value. Now, if it takes you one sentence to say that, or to say, Teddy did this project for me where we helped my company move 25 salespeople from fumbling around on LinkedIn and wasting time and not creating any value. Now, that's 3 lines in a recommendation. And then the next lines could be, Teddy came in and did this for me. He helped my people understand X and Y and Z, and he gave me this. Focus on that context of, this is what the dude did or the lady did for you, and this is the value I got. And I think that you write that in 2 sentences, it's impactful, because it says in the first sentence, this is what he did, and the second sentence, the value. Now, if it takes you 3,000 characters to write that, I'm going to tell you, most LinkedIn users are not good writers. I hope I'm okay saying that. I said most, that excludes those who are, but we're not good writers. We're not editors. We don't know how to do all this stuff. So if I try to write a 3,000 character recommendation, I'm going to make a mess of it.
Yep.
So don't. Yep. So just be deliberate and clear if that takes you 150 characters or it takes you 500.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. And then let me just ask you, do you, when somebody sends you a recommendation, do you sit there and send it back and make them proof it, or do you just go, they write the way they write, I'm okay, I'm not going to be the grammar police on these folks? What's your attitude?
Only if they spell my name wrong. I mean, like with Marcia, I mean, if I said her name wrong in a recommendation, she should smack me and tell me to do it again.
Okay. She won't. She's so sweet. She's so sweet.
That's the only reason I ever ask. I mean, if I have had one case where a guy who I thought was a business professional, and this has been years ago, so don't go look at my recommendations, try to figure out who this was, where he, his grammar was freaking utterly ridiculous. I almost said bad words and I tried to pull it back and I mumbled, but it was horrible. And so I rewrote it without changing the message. And I sent it back to him and said, dude, if you like the way I rewrote this, would you just copy and paste it and send it back to me? And he was okay with that.
Yep. And I've actually had a couple of people that their business was about good writing. They were copy editors and, that sort of thing. And I wrote them recommendations and they tweaked it. They just said, would you be okay if I just, tweaked a couple of words and I said, yep, have at it, because, I just kind of bang stuff out of my head. And also too, when you're talking about things being too long, remember too, people scan on websites. They scan on the internet. We don't want, it's like, we're not going to print this and take it home. And it's like, okay, now this is part of my proposal. It's like, we want to scan, get to the point so I can see if there's value here or not. So, okay. So we have some more comments. Debbie says authenticity is key in recommendations, whether initiating or reciprocating. That is so true. Hey, it's Randy. This is your buddy. How come he's showing up as a blank head?
Yeah, I'm about to help him change his settings on LinkedIn so he stops hiding. Yeah, dude, you better show up tomorrow. That's all I'm saying right now.
There we go. We'll get Jeff Young on it. He's usually in the comments helping people. So Randy, I had to jump on a new LinkedIn to view it. It was
freezing up on him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. So we got Jeff responding to Randy. That's great. Hello from North Carolina. Tomorrow's show will be interesting. So what's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow, Randy and I are picking up our game as if we were not already knocking it out the freaking park on our show. But tomorrow we have an employment attorney coming on to talk about the changing platform or the changing environment in the workspace with the unions growing.
Oh, wow.
So, and we're in North Carolina, which is not a union state. So it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Cool. Put a link for that, because if people are interested, then they can hop on over. We can hop on over. Woohoo! Okay, 20 annually and refilled based on your use.
Question about
services.
The services page.
Yep. Thank you. 3,000 character recommendation is very generous indeed. And Tina is a recruiter. Yeah. So she looks at these things, so from whether you're building a business or you're looking for a job, recommendations, like you said, are social proof. It allows people to get to know, like, and trust you. Now you've said that, so it's part of search, right? LinkedIn search. So people are searching.
I did some tests a while ago, and keywords, I used to use banana farmer, and I had a recommendation with the word banana farmer in it, and my profile showed up with a search for banana farmer.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's interesting. Do you think that they're Google indexed too? Like if you search in Google's search results, is it coming?
I haven't got that deliberate, Tina. But
Jillian,
I'm looking at Tina.
Because you're looking at Tina.
And Tina's not paying attention to us because she's out writing a 3,000 character recommendation for me. No, I haven't done that test yet. And,
That's right.
Randy wants to know, how many recommendations do you need? My recommendation is ask for 5 a year. If you get 2 or 3 or 4 a year, I think that for an ongoing long-term plan, that is absolutely great.
Okay. That's a good one. And then, do you believe in giving recommendations too? Do you kind of follow? Do you try to keep yours in balance?
Not really. I do try to give recommendations every now and then. I mean, if someone really engages with me in a way that's a little unusual but better, I'm like, man, I need to thank that person. And I think of either sending them a $100 bill or send them a $500 gift card to Barnes & Noble, or like, you know what? I got another idea. I'll write a recommendation.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. Okay. And one last question. I liked it years ago when recommendations were not only listed in your own section, but were also attached to the particular job in your work experience section. Isn't that happening now? Like,
It
isn't
does
there like,
happen, Jillian, but it's not displayed. So when you write a
oh,
recommendation, it asks you, where was Randy working when you wrote his recommendation? And vice versa. If he writes one for me, where was Teddy working? But it's not displayed, which tells me the
oh,
system is managing that data for some reason or other. And who knows?
that's very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. Okay. So we got an echo going on. Weird stuff today. Sum it all up for us and give us a takeaway, Teddy.
Sum it all up. Ask for recommendations deliberately, purposefully, based on what you did for somebody and the value you created for them. Ask at least 5 times a year and be grateful for the ones. Always be grateful for the ones you get. And also, this is called networking for mutual benefit. Go do an Amazon search for the book. Give recommendations. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Give a recommendation honestly and sincerely based on what someone does today. This is humans interacting with other humans. And I promise you, when you do it, as the words I saw earlier, sincerely, it'll create value.
I love that. Great summary. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to pop off now. Thank you very much for being here today,
Thanks
Teddy.
for having me.
You shared some great tips and all sorts of great things. And everybody, please follow this man, connect with this man. If he'll connect with you, I don't know, but at least follow him. He's a great resource here.
Thank
And
you,
do check him out on YouTube, because he's got a fabulous YouTube channel as well. And check out his Randy show that he does with Randy every week on Wednesdays. What's the name of that show? What's the name of your show?
Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Just do a YouTube search for it or ask me and I'll send you the registration.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Sounds
Thank you,
good.
my friend.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.